1 month had passed since the steady hand limped into Helion Station with its engines failing and its passengers terrified. And in that time, everything had changed. The Marani had been given quarters in the residential section of the station, a small apartment with windows that looked out at the stars. And every day they seemed to discover something new about what it meant to be free. Vesa had started attending classes with the human children, learning to read and write in common. And she had made friends who did not care that she was small or blue or had once been property. Hessen had found work in the station's maintenance department, where his skill with machines was valued and compensated with actual wages that belonged to him. The other adult Marani were exploring their own interests for the first time, discovering that they had preferences and talents that had been buried under generations of service. And Turin had become Yuna's shadow. He followed her everywhere, asking questions about everything, hungry for knowledge in a way that broke her heart and filled her with hope at the same time. Yuna, he asked one morning as they walked through the station's central corridor, what happens to us now? Yuna looked down at him and smiled. What do you mean? Director Quan said we could stay here forever if we wanted. But what happens after that? What do we do with our lives? It was such a simple question, but Yuna knew it was also the most complicated one the boy had ever asked for his entire life. Turin had been told what to do and when to do it and how to do it. And now suddenly he was being asked to choose his own path. That depends on you, Yuna said. What do you want to do? Turin thought about it for a long time as they walked. I want to learn, he finally said. I want to learn everything. I want to know how ships work and how stars are born and why some people are kind and others are cruel. That sounds like a good plan. And I want to help people. Turin continued. Like you helped us. I want to find others who are scared and alone and show them that they matter. Yuna felt her eyes sting with tears, and she blinked them away. I think you will be very good at that, she said. They reached the observation deck where Soleth was sitting alone, looking out at the stars with an expression Yuna could not quite read. Turin ran ahead to join her, and Yuna followed more slowly. Good morning, Soleth said as they sat down beside her. Good morning, Yuna replied. How are you feeling today? Soleth was quiet for a moment. I am feeling many things, she admitted. Happy and sad and grateful and confused. Sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night and I forget where I am. And I think I am still on the Kessin estate, waiting for someone to tell me what to do. That is normal, Yuna said. Healing takes time. I know. Director Quan found me a counselor, a human woman who helps people deal with difficult experiences. And she tells me the same thing. Soa turned to look at Yuna directly. She also told me something else. Something about you. What did she tell you? She told me that you lost your ship. Yuna felt her chest tighten. It was true. The steady hand had been repossessed 2 weeks ago when Yuna could not make the payments. And she had watched it fly away with someone else at the controls and 6 years of her life disappearing into the darkness. Yes, she said simply. You gave up everything for us, Soleth said. Your money and your ship and your career, and now you have nothing. I have enough. That is not true, Soleth said. And there was something fierce in her voice. You sacrificed everything you had worked for, and you did it for 7 strangers, who could not even thank you properly because we did not know how. She reached out and took Yuna's hand. And it was the first time she had ever initiated physical contact. You gave us more than freedom, Soleth said. You gave us ourselves. You showed us that we have value, that our lives matter, that we deserve to make choices and dream dreams. I just did what anyone would do. Yuna said. No, Soleth replied firmly. You did what almost no one would do, and I need you to understand that. I need you to know that what you did was extraordinary. She turned to look out at the stars again. The Marani have a tradition, she said. When someone saves your life, you are bound to them. not as a servant but as family, and your debts to them can never be fully repaid. Soleth, you do not owe me anything. I know I do not. That is not what I am saying. I am saying that you are family now, that you are one of us. And that means your problems are our problems. She smiled, and it transformed her face. The human community here has been very generous, Soleth continued. They have given us food and shelter and education and opportunity. But they have also given us something else. What? Money, Soleth said. Small amounts from many people. Donations to help us start our new lives, and we have been saving it. Yuna shook her head. That money is for you. For building your futures. Our futures include you, Soleth said firmly. And Director Quan has helped us find something. A ship. It is old and small and needs a lot of repair. But it is for sale at a price we can afford. Yuna stared at her in disbelief. You cannot be serious. I am completely serious. The ship is called the New Dawn, and we would like to buy it for you. Turin was bouncing with excitement beside them. We all agreed, he said. Even the little ones, we took a vote and everything. I cannot accept this, Yuna said. But her voice was shaking. You do not have a choice, Soleth replied with a smile. It is already done. The credits have been transferred and the ownership documents have been filed. You are now the captain of the New Dawn. Yuna felt tears streaming down her face, and she did not try to stop them. Why? She whispered. Soleth leaned forward and wrapped her arms around Yuna in an embrace. Because you showed us what we could become, she said. And now we want to show you that we learned. They sat together on the observation deck as Turan ran to fetch the other Marani. And soon all 7 of them were gathered around Yuna, the family she had accidentally created through one impulsive act of compassion in a grimy bar. There is one more thing, Soleth said. We have been talking, and we would like to make you an offer. What offer? Let us come with you. Let us be your crew. Hessen knows engines, and the others are learning navigation and communications and cargo management. And we could travel together, find others like us. Help them the way you helped us. Yuna looked at each of them in turn. At Soleth with her quiet strength. At Hessen with his mechanical genius. At Turin with his endless curiosity. At Vesa with her shy smile. At the others who were learning every day what it meant to be free. Are you sure? She asked. The galaxy is dangerous, and there are people out there who would hurt you if they could. We know, Soleth said. But we have learned something important in the last month, something you taught us. What is that? Soleth smiled. That courage is not the absence of fear. It is the decision that something else is more important than fear. And helping others is more important than staying safe. Yuna laughed through her tears. You know that is going to get us into trouble. Probably, Soleth agreed. But we will face that trouble together. Later that day, Yuna walked through the corridors of Helion Station toward the docking bay. Where her new ship waited, she thought about everything that had happened. About a drunk alien trading lives for liquor. About a split-second decision that had cost her everything and given her so much more. The New Dawn was small and battered, and would need months of work before it was ready to fly. But when Yuna stepped aboard and looked around at the crew who had followed her, she knew it was perfect. Where should we go first? Turin asked. Already studying the navigation console with eager eyes, Yuna considered the question. Somewhere we are needed, she said. Somewhere there are people who have forgotten that they matter. And we will remind them. She looked out through the cockpit window at the stars that stretched forever in every direction. Each one a sun that might warm a world where someone was waiting to be saved. We will remind them all, she said, and somewhere far away. In a grimy tavern on a forgotten station, a drunk Velthry was drinking the last of his whiskey, never knowing that his moment of selfish cruelty had started something that would ripple across the galaxy. Because one human had looked at 7 lives that no one else valued and decided they were worth everything, and from that simple act of compassion, a revolution of kindness had begun. The steady hand dropped out of faster-than-light travel, with its engines screaming and smoke pouring from 3 different Ventureline stations hung in the darkness ahead. A small collection of connected modules and docking arms that looked fragile against the vast emptiness of space. Helion Station. This is cargo vessel Steady Hand requesting emergency docking. Una spoke into the communication system. We have a medical situation and require immediate assistance. It was not entirely a lie, Una thought, since the terror her passengers were experiencing could certainly be called a medical situation. Steady Hand. This is Helion Station Control, a voice replied. Please state the nature of your emergency. Before Una could answer, another voice cut across the channel. Cold and official, Helion Station. This is the consortium vessel Ironclad. The ship approaching your station is carrying stolen property belonging to the Veloz Mining Consortium. You are ordered to deny them docking and hold them for our arrival. Una watched as the consortium ship emerged from faster-than-light travel behind her. Its weapons already powering up. Steady Hand, the station controller said. And Una could hear the uncertainty in his voice. Please explain the situation. Una took a deep breath. I am carrying 7 Marani refugees who were illegally sold into slavery, she said. The consortium claims to own them, but I purchased them legally and freed them. I am asking for asylum under human law, which does not recognize the ownership of sentient beings. There was silence on the channel for a long moment. Please hold. Steady Hand. The controller finally said. The consortium ship continued to approach, and Una could see it clearly now on her screen. A sleek warship bristling with weapons that could tear the Steady Hand apart in seconds. Behind her, she heard soft footsteps, and she turned to see Sola standing in the cockpit doorway with Turin beside her. Are they going to take us back? Turin asked in a small voice. I do not know, Una admitted, because she had promised herself she would never lie to them. Steady Hand. This is Director Kwon Ji-hoon. A new voice came over the communication channel, deeper and more authoritative than the controller. I am the administrator of Helion Station. I have reviewed your request, and I am granting you emergency docking clearance at Base 7. Director Kwon. The consortium ship immediately responded. You are interfering with consortium business. Surrender the stolen property or face consequences. This is a human station operating under human law. Director Kwon replied calmly. We do not recognize slave contracts of any kind, and any sentient beings who reach our station are considered free under our jurisdiction. Those Marani are property of the Veloz Mining Consortium. Not anymore, they are not. Una guided the Steady Hand toward the docking bay. Her hand shaking with relief and residual fear, the consortium ship matched her course, staying close but not yet firing. Director, the consortium captain said, and his voice had turned threatening. Your station has no military value and no fleet to protect it. If you do not surrender the property immediately, we will take it by force. There was a pause, and then Director Kwon laughed. Captain, I appreciate the warning, but I think you may have underestimated the situation. Una was watching her sensors when the first new contact appeared, and then another. And then a dozen more ships were emerging from behind Helion Station and from the nearby asteroid field, and from hidden positions throughout the area. Cargo haulers and mining vessels and personal transports, and even a few old patrol boats that had seen better days. None of them were military ships, and none of them were particularly impressive on their own. But together, they formed a wall between the consortium warship and the station. What is this? The consortium captain demanded. This is what happens when you threaten a human station, Director Kwon replied. Every human in this sector has been listening to this conversation, and they have decided that they do not like what they are hearing. A new voice joined the channel, rough and accented. This is Captain Okonkwo of the mining vessel Red Horizon. I do not have weapons, but I have a hull full of ore that weighs about 6,000 tons. And I would be happy to ram it into your engines if you try to take those people." Another voice followed, Captain Song of the transport Faithful. "I have got 20 crew members who used to be military. And we are all very interested in seeing how your warship handles a boarding action." More voices joined in. One after another, humans from a dozen different ships, declaring their willingness to fight for 7. Aliens they had never met. Silith was staring at the communication panel with shock on her face. "They do not even know." "US," she whispered. "Why would they risk their lives?" Yuna felt tears forming in her eyes. "Because that is what humans do," she said. "When we see something wrong, we stand up against it, even when it is dangerous, even when it does not make sense." The consortium captain was silent for a long moment, and Yuna could imagine him calculating the odds, weighing the value of 7 Marani against the cost of a battle that might destroy his ship. "This is not over," he finally said. "The consortium will file formal complaints with every relevant authority, and you will face consequences for this interference. File whatever you want." Director Quan replied, "But file it somewhere else. You are not welcome in this sector anymore." The consortium ship held position for another tense minute, and then slowly, reluctantly, it began to turn away. "Human," the consortium captain said, and Yuna realized he was speaking directly to her. "You have made powerful enemies today. The Marani are not worth the war you have started." "You are wrong," Yuna replied. "They are worth exactly this much and more." The consortium ship jumped to faster-than-light travel and disappeared, and a cheer erupted over the communication channel as the human ships celebrated their victory. The steady hand docked at Helion Station, and when the airlock opened, Director Quan was waiting for them personally. He was a tall man with gray hair and kind eyes, and he smiled when he saw Yuna leading the 7 Marani down the ramp. "Welcome to Helion Station," he said. "You are safe here." Sola stepped forward, and Yuna could see her struggling to find words. "Why?" Soleth asked. "Why did all of you risk so much for us?" "We are nobody. We are just servants who were sold for a drink." Director Quan knelt down so he could look her in the eyes. "A long time ago, humans treated each other the way the galaxy treats your people," he said. "We bought and sold each other. We told ourselves that some lives were worth more than others. And it took us centuries of pain to learn how wrong we were." He placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "We swore we would never let it happen again. Not to our own people, and not to anyone else. So when we heard about what was happening, we did the only thing we could do." "You came to help," Soleth said. "We came to help," Director Quan confirmed. "Because that is what family does, and as of right now, you are family." Turin tugged on Yuna's sleeve, and she looked down at him. "Does this mean we do not have to be afraid anymore?" He asked. Yuna picked him up and held him close, feeling his small heart beating against her chest. "Yes," she said. "It means you never have to be afraid again around them." The human residents of Helion Station were gathering, bringing food and blankets and toys for the children, welcoming 7 strangers into their community with open arms. And somewhere in the galaxy, the Veloz Mining Consortium was learning a lesson that would spread through the stars. Do not threaten the people that humans have decided to protect, because humans never forgot, and they never forgave, and they never stopped fighting for what was right. 3 days passed as the steady hand flew through the dark spaces between star systems. And in that time, Yuna watched the Marani begin to change. It started with small things on the first day. Soleth asked if she could help prepare the meals instead of just receiving them. And Yuna said yes and showed her how to use the ship's small kitchen on the second day. One of the adult males named Hessen asked about the ship's engines because he had once worked in a maintenance facility and found machines interesting Yuna. took him to the engine room, and let him look at everything, answering his questions as best she could on the third day. Turin followed Yuna to the cockpit and stood in the doorway, watching her work with fascination in his eyes. "Would you like to see what I am doing?" Yuna asked. Turin looked back toward the cargo bay where Solith was watching, and when she nodded her permission, he crept forward like a small animal approaching something it was not sure was safe. "This is the navigation console," Yuna explained, pointing at the screen filled with stars and lines. "It shows me where we are and where we are going." Turin leaned closer, his dark eyes reflecting the light from the display. "So many stars," he whispered. And then he flinched as if expecting punishment for speaking. "Yes," Yuna said gently. "And each one might have planets around it. And some of those planets might have people living on them. Have you been to many of them?" "Some of them. I have been a cargo hauler for 6 years, so I have traveled to many different places." Turin was quiet for a moment, studying the screen. "Can you teach me?" he asked, so softly that Yuna almost did not hear him. "Teach you what?" "How to read the stars. How to know where you are going. How to fly a ship." Yuna smiled. "I would be happy to teach you," she said. "Here, come sit beside me, and I will show you the basics." Turin climbed onto the seat next to her, and Yuna began explaining the navigation system in simple terms, pointing out which symbols meant which things and how to read the distance markers when Turin accidentally pressed the wrong button and the screen flickered with an error message. He immediately threw himself off the seat and onto the floor, curling into a ball with his hands over his head. "I am sorry," he cried. "I am sorry. Please do not hurt me. I did not mean to break it." Yuna felt her heart shatter into 1,000 pieces. She knelt down beside him, but did not touch him, knowing that her touch might frighten him more. "Turin," she said softly, "look at me." The boy slowly raised his head, tears streaming down his face. "You did not break anything," Yuna said. "It was just a small mistake, and small mistakes are how we learn. You are not angry?" "No, I am not angry. I could never be angry at you for trying to learn something new." She reached out her hand, palm up, and waited. After a long moment, Turin placed his small hand in hers. "Where I come from," Yuna said, "we believe that making mistakes is one of the most important parts of learning. Because if you never make mistakes, it means you are never trying anything difficult." "That is strange," Turin said. But there was something like wonder in his voice. "Maybe it is strange," Yuna agreed. "But it is also true. So let us go back to the console and try again. And this time I will show you which buttons not to press." They returned to the navigation console, and Turin listened carefully as Yuna continued the lesson. And by the end of the hour, he could identify 3 different types of star systems and read the basic fuel consumption display when he finally went back to join the other Marani. Solith was waiting for him with a strange expression on her face. "He praised me," Turin told her, still sounding amazed. "I made a mistake and she did not hit me. She said I was learning." Solith looked toward the cockpit where Yuna was still seated, and something shifted in her eyes that night after the others had gone to sleep. Solith came to find Yuna alone in the cargo bay where she was checking their remaining supplies. "We are running out of food," Solith observed. "Yes," Yuna admitted. "I was not prepared for 7 additional passengers. And we cannot stop at any station because the consortium might be watching. What will we do?" Yuna sighed and rubbed her tired eyes. "I have been sending messages to every contact I have, trying to find somewhere safe for us to go. But most of them will not risk angering the Veloz consortium, because we are not worth the trouble," Solith said, and there was no bitterness in her voice. Only the flat acceptance of someone stating a fact that is not true. Yuna said firmly, "It is what the galaxy believes." "Then the galaxy is wrong." Solith sat down across from Yuna and was quiet for a while. "I have been thinking about what you said." She finally spoke. About humans being slaves and learning that it was wrong. Yes? I am trying to understand how you learned. How you convinced yourselves that the masters were not better than the slaves when everything in your world told you otherwise. Yuna considered the question carefully. I think it started with individual people, she said. People who looked at the system they lived in and decided it was wrong, even though everyone around them said it was natural. People who risked everything to help others escape. People who wrote and spoke and fought for the idea that all people deserve to be free. And they won? Eventually. After a lot of pain and struggle and sacrifice, yes. They won. Solith nodded slowly. You are one of those people, she said. One of the ones who decides something is wrong and risks everything to change it. I do not know about that, Yuna said with a tired laugh. I am just a cargo hauler who made an impulsive decision in a bar. That is not true, Solith said, echoing Yuna's earlier words, and you know it. Before Yuna could respond, an alarm sounded from the cockpit. She ran to check the sensors and felt her stomach drop. When she saw what they showed, a ship was approaching from behind, moving fast, and its signature matched the registration codes of a Veloz Consortium security vessel. They had been found. Yuna's hands flew across the controls, pushing the steady hand to maximum speed, but she knew it would not be enough. Her ship was old and slow, built for carrying cargo rather than running from warships. How long do we have? Solith asked from the doorway. 6 hours, maybe 7 if I push the engines past their safe limits. Is there anywhere we can go? Yuna stared at the navigation screen, searching for options. And then she saw Athelian Station, a small human outpost on the edge of this sector. It was only 5 hours away at maximum speed. Humans did not recognize slave contracts from other species, and a human station might be willing to offer them shelter. It was a risk, but it was the only chance they had. Yes, Yuna said, and she began plotting the course. There is somewhere we can go, but we need to get there before they catch us. She looked at Solith. Go wake the others and tell them to strap in. I am going to have to fly faster than this ship was designed to handle, and it might get rough. Solith nodded and turned to leave, but she paused at the doorway. Thank you, she said, for trying, even if we do not make it. Thank you for showing us that someone thought we were worth trying for. We are going to make it, Yuna said with more confidence than she felt. I did not give up everything just to fail now. She turned back to the controls and pushed the engines harder, watching the distance to Helion Station slowly decrease while the consortium ship continued to gain behind them in the cargo bay. 7 Marani held each other and waited. And for the first time in their lives, they dared to hope that their future might be different from their past, because a human had shown them that they were worth fighting for. And maybe, just maybe, that meant they were worth something after all. The Steady Hand was not a large ship, but it had enough space for a crew of 4 and cargo besides, which meant there was room for the 7 Marani to sleep in the empty crew quarters. Yuna showed them to the rooms and told them to rest. And then she went to the cockpit to plot a course away from Nexer Station. When she returned an hour later, she found all 7 of them sitting on the floor in a corner of the cargo hold. They had not touched the beds or the blankets, or the food she had left for them. The eldest female, whose name Yuna still did not know, stood up immediately when she saw Yuna approaching. Forgive us, Master, she said with her head bowed. We did not want to dirty your sleeping quarters. Yuna felt something twist painfully in her chest. Please do not call me Master, she said. My name is Yuna, and you are not my servants. The Marani exchanged confused glances, but said nothing. I destroyed your ownership chips, Yuna continued. That means you are free now, and you do not belong to anyone. We understand, the eldest female said, but her tone suggested that she did not understand at all. We will call you Yuna if that is what you prefer. Yuna knelt down so she could look at them more directly. What is your name? She asked the eldest female. The question seemed to startle her. "I am called Soleth," she said after a pause. "I was the head of household for the Kesson family for 23 cycles. And the children?" Soleth gestured to the small boy and girl who sat pressed against the wall behind her. "The boy is Turin, and the girl is Vesa," she said. "They are not related by blood, but they have been raised together since birth." Una looked at the two children, who watched her with wide, frightened eyes. "Hello, Turin," she said gently. "Hello, Vesa. Are you hungry?" Neither child answered, and Vesa pressed herself closer to the wall, as if trying to disappear. Soleth spoke quickly. "They are not permitted to speak to masters," she explained. "They are still in training, and their words are not yet worthy of being heard." Una closed her eyes for a moment and forced herself to breathe. "Soleth," she said carefully, "I need you to understand something, and I know it will be hard to believe, but I need you to try." Soleth nodded and waited. "I am not your master," Una said. "I do not want you to serve me. I do not want the children to be silent. And I do not want you to sleep on the floor because you think you do not deserve beds." She paused and looked at each of them in turn. "Bought you because I could not stand to watch you be sold to slavers. And I freed you because no living being should ever be owned by another. And now I am trying to figure out what to do next because I have never done anything like this before." Soleth stared at her for a long moment, and something flickered in her dark eyes that might have been hope or might have been fear. "This is a test," Soleth said quietly. "You are testing us to see if we will become lazy or disobedient when given freedom." "No," Una said. "Then you will grow tired of the game and sell us to someone worse." "No." "Then what do you want?" Soleth asked, and for the first time there was frustration in her voice. "What is the purpose of this kindness if not to trick us?" Una sat down on the cargo bay floor across from them, and she did not try to move closer or touch them. "Where I come from," she said, "there is a very old belief that all people are born equal, that no one is better or worse than anyone else just because of where they came from or what species they are." She looked at Turin, who was watching her with curious eyes, even as he tried to hide behind Soleth. "Humans were slaves too. A long time ago," Una continued. "Our own people enslaved each other based on the color of their skin or the place they were born. And it took us centuries to understand how wrong that was." "You were slaves?" Soleth asked with surprise. "Some of us were, and some of us were the masters. And eventually, we learned that both were damaged by the arrangement. That slavery does not just hurt the enslaved, but also corrupts the ones who hold the chains." Una spread her hands. "I do not want anything from you except for you to learn that you have value, that your lives matter, that you deserve to make your own choices and dream your own dreams." Soleth was silent for a long time. "And if we choose to leave?" she finally asked. "Then I will help you find somewhere safe to go. And if we choose to stay, then you are welcome here for as long as you want, and you will live as my equals, not my servants." Soleth looked at the other Marani, at the children and the 4 adults who had been listening with growing confusion. "I do not know how to be equal," she admitted. "I do not know how to make choices or dream dreams. I have only ever known how to serve." "Then I will teach you," Una said, "or we will learn together. Because honestly, I am not very good at this either." A small sound came from behind Soleth, and everyone turned to look at Turin. The boy had made a noise that might have been a laugh, quickly stifled. And now he looked terrified by his own reaction. "It is all right," Una said with a gentle smile. "You are allowed to laugh here." Turin did not laugh again, but some of the fear left his eyes. They ate together that night, sitting in a circle on the cargo bay floor because the Marani were not yet ready to sit at a table like guests. Una did not push them, and she did not comment when they waited for her to eat first, or when they flinched every time she reached for something. Small steps. She told herself, small steps and patience after the meal. Yuna went to check the ship's communications, and she found a message waiting that turned her blood cold. The message was from the slaver who had sold her the Marani, and it was brief and formal. The Marani you purchased were already contracted to the Velos Mining Consortium. The message read, "A retrieval team has been dispatched to collect them, and you will be compensated for your purchase price. Do not resist, or you will face criminal charges for theft of consortium property." Yuna read the message 3 times and then deleted it. She walked back to the cargo bay where the Marani were still sitting, not yet brave enough to explore the ship or claim their own spaces. "Change of plans," she said, keeping her voice calm. "We need to move faster than I thought." Soleth looked up at her, and there was something new in her expression, something that had not been there before. "Someone is coming for us," she said. And it was not a question. "Yes, and you are going to run." "Yes." Soleth stood up slowly, and for the first time she met Yuna's eyes directly. "Why?" she asked. "Why would you risk yourself for us? You have already lost your money. Why would you also risk your freedom?" Yuna looked at Turin and Vesa, who were watching her with those large dark eyes that had seen too much cruelty and not enough kindness. "Because you matter," she said simply, "and because I made a promise when I broke those ownership chips, and I do not break my promises." Soleth stared at her for a long moment, and then she did something that surprised them both. She bowed her head, not in submission, but in respect. "Then we will follow you," Soleth said, "not because you own us, but because you have earned our trust." It was not much, Yuna knew. Just a small crack in the wall that generations of slavery had built around these gentle people. But it was a start. She went to the cockpit and plotted a new course, deeper into uncharted space, where maybe they could disappear long enough to figure out what to do next. Behind her, she heard Turin asking Soleth a question, the first words he had spoken since coming aboard. "Is she really going to help us?" he asked in his small, quiet voice. "I think she's going to try," Soleth answered. "And right now that is more than anyone else has ever done." The steady hand jumped to faster than light speed and left Nexer Station behind, carrying 7 souls who were learning for the first time what it meant to be valued, and 1 human who had given up everything to teach them. The tavern on Nexer Station smelled like burnt metal and cheap alcohol, and the noise inside was loud enough to hurt the ears of anyone who stayed too long. Yuna Park sat alone in a corner booth with a cup of cold coffee in front of her, watching the crowd of aliens move through the dim orange light that filled the room. She had stopped here only to rest before her next cargo run, but something kept her seated, something in the air that felt wrong. The Velthari merchant at the bar was already drunk when Yuna first noticed him, and now he could barely stand on his 4 thin legs. His name was Kessin, though Yuna did not know this yet, and he was shouting at a tall, gray-skinned alien who wore the black uniform of a slaver. "I need 1 more drink," Kessin slurred, his translator crackling with static as it converted his words into common. "Just 1 more bottle of the Vishan whiskey, and I will give you whatever you want." The slaver smiled, and it was not a kind smile. "You have nothing left to give," the slaver said. "You lost everything at the gambling tables 3 hours ago." Kessin swayed and nearly fell, then grabbed the edge of the bar to steady himself. "I have my household staff," he said, and the words came out thick and slow. 7 Marani servants who have served my family for 3 generations." Yuna felt her stomach turn cold. The Marani were a small species, gentle and quiet, known throughout the galaxy for their loyalty and their skill at domestic work. They were also known for something else. They had no legal protections anywhere in civilized space, and they were bought and sold like furniture. The slaver leaned forward with interest. 7 Marani, he repeated. "Including any children?" 2 children, Kessin confirmed. "A boy and a girl, both young and healthy." "Then we have a deal," the slaver said, and he signaled to the bartender. who brought out a dusty bottle of amber liquid and set it on the counter. Kesson grabbed the bottle with shaking hands and did not look back as the slaver pulled out a communication device and spoke into it. Una watched in silence as a door at the back of the tavern opened and 7 small figures were led inside. The Marani were shorter than humans, with soft blue-gray skin and large dark eyes that seemed to hold a deep and permanent sadness. The eldest was a female who walked with her head down and her hands clasped in front of her, and she kept the 2 children close to her body as if she could shield them from what was happening. The slaver attached restraint bands to their wrists, one by one, and not a single Marani made a sound of protest. They had been trained too well for that. Kesson did not even glance at them as they were led past him, and he was already drinking from the bottle. His eyes closed in pleasure. 3 generations of service, Una thought, and he traded them for 1 drink. She did not remember standing up, but suddenly she was moving through the crowd, pushing past aliens twice her size until she reached the tavern entrance where the slaver was leading his new property outside. "Wait," Una called out, and her voice was steady even though her heart was pounding. The slaver turned and looked at her with cold yellow eyes. "What do you want, human?" "I want to buy them," Una said. "All 7 of them." The slaver laughed, and several nearby aliens turned to watch with amusement. "You want to buy them," he repeated. "Do you have any idea what 7 healthy Marani are worth on the open market? Name your price." The slaver studied her for a long moment, taking in her warm cargo jacket and her scuffed boots and the old ship key hanging from a chain around her neck. 80,000 credits, he said. "That is my price, human, and it is not negotiable." Una felt the blood drain from her face. 80,000 credits was everything she had saved over 6 years of hauling cargo across dangerous space lanes. And it was also every payment she owed on her ship for the next 2 years. If she paid this price, she would lose everything. The slaver saw her hesitation and smiled. "That is what I thought," he said. And he turned to leave, pulling the Marani behind him. One of the children, the boy, looked back at Una with those large, dark eyes. And in that moment, she saw something that broke her heart. He was not hoping for rescue because he did not know that rescue was possible. He was simply looking at her the way he looked at everything, with the quiet acceptance of a creature who had never been taught that his life had value. Una pulled out her credit chip. "Wait," she said again, and this time her voice was hard. The slaver turned back with surprise. 80,000 credits, Una said. "Transferring now." She pressed her thumb to the chip and watched the numbers on the screen drop to 0. Watched 6 years of her life disappear in an instant. And she did not let herself think about what she was doing, because if she thought about it, she would stop. The slaver checked his own device, and his eyes widened when he saw that the transfer was real. "You are either very rich or very stupid," he said. "Just give me the ownership chips." Una replied. The slaver shrugged and handed over 7 small metal discs, each one encoded with the legal ownership of a living being. "They're yours now," he said. "Do what you want with them." He walked away without looking back. Already counting his profit in his head, Una stood alone with 7 Marani, who watched her with fear in their eyes, waiting to learn what kind of master she would be. The eldest female, the one who had kept the children close, stepped forward and lowered her head even further. "We will serve you well, new master," she said, and her voice was soft and without hope. "Please tell us what you require." Una looked at her and then at the others, at the children who trembled and the adults who stood with their shoulders bent from years of submission. "Come with me," Una said, and she turned toward the docking bay where her ship waited. "We need to get off this station before anyone changes their mind." The Marani followed her in perfect silence, their bare feet making no sound on the metal floor. and Yuna led them through the crowded corridors of Nexus Station while her mind raced with questions. She could not answer what had she done. And how would she explain it? And what would happen when the ship payments came due and she had nothing to give? But every time those questions threatened to overwhelm her, she looked back at the two children walking behind her, and she remembered the look in that boy's eyes. He had never been taught that his life had value. And maybe that was something she could change. They reached the docking bay, and Yuna led them up the ramp into her ship. A battered cargo hauler called the Steady Hand that she had spent 6 years paying for and would now certainly lose. The Marani stood just inside the airlock, huddled together, waiting for instructions. Xena sealed the door behind them, and then she did something that made all 7 of them flinch in confusion. She knelt down so that she was at eye level with the children. And she smiled. "You are safe now," she said. "I am not going to hurt you, and I am not going to sell you, and I'm not going to make you work." The Marani stared at her without comprehension. "I do not understand," the eldest female whispered. "What do you want from us?" Yuna reached into her pocket and pulled out the 7 ownership chips. And then she dropped them on the floor and crushed them under her boot. "Nothing," she said. "I want nothing from you except for you to be free." The Marani looked at the broken chips, and then at Yuna, and then at each other. And not one of them believed her, but that was all right. Yuna thought as she stood up and walked toward the cockpit they would learn to believe her eventually. She just hoped she had enough time to teach them.